think this is recording. Obviously, snow days aren't great unless you like snow, but that's fine. And also, what I said yesterday's lesson, and I was quite serious. To write about things, it might help to have some experience of things. And some of you, I'm slightly worried, are in a little bit of a bubble of worry and stress and work when life is passing you by. But I hope you made the most of it. But I know some of you will be anxious about missing lessons and things like that. I'm sure English isn't a concern for a lot of you, which it shouldn't be in a moment because some of you have done amazing. But just in the middle of doing all the marking, something has come up, and I thought it's something you can have a look at on your own. But rather than just email you out, I thought I would do a video just to talk you through it for a few minutes. So, if you can, hopefully you can see the document I've got open on my screen, and it's a bit awkward because I'm looking, the work's to the right of the camera, hence why I keep looking over. Just to sum it up, some of you, and we will share examples of the really good ones and things, they give you the extract for a few reasons. The main one is so every child has a substantial amount of text, so they can talk about what the writer is doing, they can use quotations, and that's that sort of literature essay sort of model. But they also give it you to see if the more able students are able to understand its place in the text. Now, some of you have done very well, particularly with the Macbeth one, talking about how Lady Macbeth's role in that scene is indicative of her strength that she's already shown, but her confidence is misplaced because later on her guilt consumes her. I think someone actually wrote that, which is pretty amazing. So that's good. Jekyll and Hyde wasn't as good, and whether it's because you were tired, it was the second half, or because we haven't done Jekyll and Hyde as recently, maybe, and that's the problem with the 2 GCSEs in English and all the content. It wasn't actually anyone in our class, but I haven't seen one of our classes yet. I've seen most actually because I've been doing a lot of standardising. They were mentioning Hyde trampling a little girl, but there was no connection. There was no holistic overview of he's trampling a little girl and then paying off a bribe here at the start. By this point, he's murdering an old man after an altercation on the street. There is progression there. So what I've done, you've got a few keywords. I think there are plenty of others, but I didn't want to just bombard you with words you'll forget half of them. You could argue that Hyde killing Danvers is the combination of Jekyll's experiment, of the separation of the good from the bad, of the removal of morality, whatever you want to call it. The combination of that is cold-blooded murder. There's a few of you are trying to be too clever, and there's a couple in the other classes that are just trying to go, and they're trying to impress the examiner by being as wacky as possible. At the end of the day, unless it's rooted in the text, you might get penalised for it. So as long as it's rooted in the text, you can say what you want. So the full moon and the werewolf thing works quite well if it's explained well. But big conspiracy theories about why he kills Danvers' crew and whether that's to do with secret lives or maybe Danvers' crew had some secret knowledge about him. You don't want to go into that too much. You can mention it and say that Hyde's lack of morality, Hyde's animal nature, Hyde's beastliness, it means he does not approach and problems in a civil and way acceptable to a society. He takes matters into his own hands. But it's because he started down this path of removing the goodness from himself so he can act with impunity. That's a good word. and I'm going to email all this. This will all be attached to it, and the two sources I'm going to show you. So you can do that. And with the Macbeth one, you've got these words here. So culmination, is this a culmination of previous events? In which case you need to put it in relation to those previous events. So the one we looked at briefly in class with Paul, Paul's anxiety, the way he's reacting to the mess and the lab is because he has basically been having to turn a blind eye to it, and at this point he realises that it's gone too far and he's been an accomplice to it. The ghost scene, that is sort of planting the seed of the breakdown in Macbeth and Lady Macbeth's relationship. So his guilt is forcing him away from his partner in greatness that one of you said. The word foreshadowing I did not see a lot. Now it might be I've not marked the ones that mention it, but sorry, the ghost scene foreshadows where this will end up. That Macbeth will be totally isolated and he will be seeing things and it all informs decision making. The progression, you can talk about progression. Hyde is progressing towards an absolute break from Victorian society, from Dr. Jekyll, from the life of a gentleman, and even just towards developing development. This shows the developing horror and terror of Jekyll's experiment. There is no coming back from murder. And the whole essay doesn't have to be based around it, but it needs to be this awareness of where the extract is within the text. And this extract is important because it completes a narrative arc. It completes a journey for the character. Or this extract is important because it's at this moment Macbeth is doomed, because he is not going to be a good king. He's not going to be able to cope with what he's done. There's still a weird reluctance for some of you to talk about the endings of texts. It's almost like you don't want to give the ending away, like a spoiler alert. Macbeth ends up tackling Macduff, a physical form of his tyranny. That's a good line, I have that. And he's comfortable with that. He cannot cope with the ghost and with the witch's prophecies. He doesn't quite understand because he thought he did, but now he doesn't. He needs a man with a sword in front of him. But that's what he can deal with. That is Macbeth's skill, is raison d'etre, so to speak. And the word epiphany. An epiphany is a moment of awareness or moment of sudden realisation. Lady Macbeth, you could argue, has that moment at the banquet. She realises that Macbeth is not stable. He has too much the milk human kindness in him. He is not able to act like the flower because he is the serpent. So just a little flourish like that to show I know why this extract is important. All right. So it's this word here that they tend to use occasionally at GCSE, but they use it a hell of a lot at A level, which is where a lot of you are, to be honest, and you should be thinking about going on. And long term, just while I'm here, I have done in the past, particularly with COVID, but I don't, because we haven't got sixth form anymore, which is obviously a big loss for me professionally, because I used to love teaching A level, but the work you have to put in is a lot. I don't mind in the summer term after your exams. If any of you are doing A-level English Lit, I don't mind helping you prepare for that. You might be busy and have holidays and that, but I've done it before. Just put together a few little things and just go over it and help you. And they use the word significant a lot in those A-level questions. So I've attached, hopefully, these two booklets. I think you've seen them before in various forms, and it's a selection of possible exam questions from Macbeth and Jekyll and Hyde. And they're put together by a bloke that works for the exam board and the DFE, the Department for Education. He's on the Oak national team, so he knows what he's talking about. He's way better than me. So just and what I would do just if you are sort of stuck in today because apparently the snow's really bad over your way, or the weekend, or if you just find yourself loose end, which I'm sure you won't be for revision, this is a good exercise. So look at each extract. So the first one we looked at before, we didn't see in a play because the bloke forgot it. The sergeant is reporting to King Duncan about the battle, right? It's Act 1, Scene 2. So the question you'd probably get would be either about violence or leadership or maybe fate, right? So I look at this extract and you think, right, I'm going to be able to talk about the swimming analogies of fate. I'm going to be able to talk about the alliteration on Merciless MacDonald, the way the characters are linked to their basic traits, the word swarm to show the vast numbers. You can pick out things like that. You've also got the sort of like the hellish imagery is starting to come in, the symbolism like smoke to bloody execution, and then obviously the battlements, this idea that they're our battlements at this moment, but they're about to become Macbeth's battlements as repeated by Lady Macbeth saying it. So there's lots and lots of methods in there for you to pick out and tick that box. The context, you're going to talk about how Scotland had this system of government that was very different. Tanistry, if you can remember it. If not, just about the fact Duncan is reliant on violent men to do violent things. There was a great quote by, I think, President Truman, or it might be President Roosevelt. I forget the context, but they asked him something about why does he feel safe. It was something about security during the Cold War, and he said, because I have the Marines under my control, who are good men that will do bad things in the night. It was something like that. I think I might have just slightly misquoted it, but it's that sense that you can maintain peace through war or violence, right? So you've got that. So you've got all that to talk about in the context and the methods, and you can talk about how it shows that Scotland is a very violent world, and Macbeth's violence catches on him. But in terms of the extract itself, it's important because it establishes... Right, hang on. It establishes our main character. Macbeth is a very violent, capable soldier, and Duncan is reliant on him to do his deeds. Right? Later on, obviously, you've got the irony. He does not do it himself. He sends other people to kill Banquo and Macduff's family. But at the end, he comes back to what he's good at. So if you just mention that progression, that what is established about Macbeth, brave Macbeth, as he moves away from it, that is his tragedy. And then he comes back to it at the end to almost turn some kind of redemption by owning up to Macduff's family and things like that. The second one, only it's got power. So his power is in his actions. His power is in taking responsibility for his actions. The next one, Lady Macbeth reading a letter. Obviously, again, you've got all the feminine things. You would have to mention it here. She is like totally confident in what she's doing. But at this moment, she is unaware of the consequences of what they're about to do. And not many of you mention Catholic guilt, which I think we need to look at. She thinks she's immune from guilt and her conscience because she's prepared to embrace the night and prepared to embrace the murdering ministers themselves. By the end of the play, her guilt consumes her and the sleepwalking scene comes in, which is, the sleepwalking scene is far more dramatic because we've got this scene earlier. Her fall is what makes it tragic and dramatic. So I would do that. I'd go through each extract and just write down a little comment. This extract is important because it shows this, which later on becomes this, or this is important because it shows this, which is very different to what happened before. You almost need to draw a little arc, just draw a little semicircle, and whether it be, a frowny face or a smiley face. But she's up here, ends up, that's not a semicircle, ignore me. a curve. So she's up here, she ends up here. She's up here, but she ends up down here. Just think about where the extract is on that line. I mean, Jekyll and Hyde, the same thing. Enfield's telling him about the door, which it shows how much they like gossip, how much they're the hypocrisy that they walk in the streets and like almost taking a voyeuristic pleasure in the comings and goings of poor people. And then obviously they've got then the maid's recollection what she sees, and it's like not everything you see in the night is worthy of gossip. It could be very serious. And then when you go on through this, I just think, right, that's the extract. This is mysterious because he confronts Hyde, whereas later on the true horror of it is revealed when he finds out that he's been talking to Hyde the whole time when he's been talking to Jekyll. So I don't want to. Right, I've got 16 minutes. Oh, and I've got to finish marking your exams. And thank you, Claudia, for giving me a migraine with your writing. Although you did write some really nice stuff, so that's good. Right then, so I'll send this to you. Look at it if you want. If not, it's there, I suppose, for Easter or other revision. Hope your snow day was good, and your snowman was way better than Holly's. Holly, yeah. Right, take care. I'm going to go back to it. God bless. I don't know how to start.